So during class the other day, we were talking about the idea of being able to recognise lines of force. Now, most people here have got a bit of experience, but do you know what I mean by when I say line of force? Yeah, that could be a direction of a punch or a kick, or it could be the pressure that someone's putting on you. Lots of different ways. And it was interesting to me to see how people were interpreting that in their own heads and how they were reacting to that in their technique. And we ended up using another aspect of the art to demonstrate what we were doing in our taijutsu. Where are you here? Do you want? You warmed up? Yeah, yes. So technique, yaku. Technique like TENCHI-NAGE. You know, my line of force is not straight through him, obviously, because I'm going to load up his feet. My line of force has to be redirected and through. So if you like, you could argue my line of force is going across his structure, collapsing the kidney space. It's opening up the instep on that foot and it's loading up the instep of his heel. And I'm not using upper body pressure, it's the otoshi that's connecting him to the floor. So my line of force is going through there. Now when we were talking about this and explaining it, there still seemed to be a little bit of a lack of correlation. Some people were still kind of thinking that it was going through the centre. Maybe it's just because I can't explain things properly. But I just want to try something today. So just as a part of the warm-up, nice and simple, off to the side, create this space and through. And I'm trying to do this as a warm-up exercise as well as a simple kihon kata. Everything's linked in front of the centre. I'm using a little bit of tegatana to link into the back of his fingers. If I just go straight down, I'm attacking the thumb. I just want to catch into the fingers, so the underside of his arm is leading. This is going to go past the hip, of course, and then I'm opening up this space here so I can go straight through. You can, of course, go across and take it right the way through, but I prefer to get underneath because I'm lower to the floor than most people, and this gives me the advantage to go through under here. And if I want to, I can always koshi or whatever. So, through. Traditional TENCHI-NAGE, shoulder to shoulder, and hip dropping, and my back hip rotating to take through into the space. More than happy for you guys today to do whichever version you want. Taking the centre line, and just try and make it so that your entire body movement, the line of force of your body movement is going through the structure. Does that make sense? Real simple kazushi exercise. And then I'll show you something. So, hey. Have a go. So, I mean, you can view technique through multiple of different lenses. We're just looking at this from lines of force today, or directional. TENCHI-NAGE, heaven and earth. It tends to get trained as heaven and then earth, or earth and then heaven. It tends to be boom, boom. This is a separation technique. As far as I understand this, it's two things at once. One thing is opening the structure up, throwing the hips forwards, and the otoshi is collapsing the feet into the floor, stopping the readjustment. And it comes in many, many forms. I'm sure that, we've got lots of representatives here from different styles. But the line of force is what's creating the break in the structure, but I've got to make sure that I'm moving as a complete system. Very, very easy for me to kind of do this and be stepping through and leave this behind. Even kind of here isn't really connected to me as a unit. Let's say the spine is my central core. It's a bit more complicated than that, of course, but for the sake of argument, I want my hand in front of my centre. For a basic, you know? So as I'm moving through, this is here, and my structure moves through, and the arm almost is irrelevant. It's the shape of the hips, and I'm exaggerating, but you see what I mean? It's the structure. It comes from the lower body. And of course, you know, this can change. This can change. If you swing in a, variations upon variations, but it's all the same principle. So just have another try. This time be really formal with your diagonal step, just so you're actually acknowledging that there's two lines of force within this. You know, the balance break is definitely through there, but the otoshi and the collapse and the compression is through underneath. So you're making this zigzag, or you can zag-zig if you prefer. Have a go. So anyway, out of this conversation of lines of force, I was just trying to think of a way to more clearly demonstrate it. If you're kind of a bit thick like I am, anything that's really kind of blatantly obvious is a good thing. And I like doing technique with the Jo because it's not only kind of symbolic, but it's all of the Aiki weapons, if you want to call them that, are massive exaggerations of the shapes we find elsewhere. That's how I see it anyway. So if Theo makes a ski, that's his line of force. It couldn't be more obvious. So that for me is lovely. It's really easy for me to get my head around. And if I want to translate this now to, for example, to what we were doing before, I've got my shape, absorb, and down. And it's the same basic shape. It's effectively tenchi. Well, it's not exactly the same, but it's near enough to... I'm breaking this down. So I'm sinking and just dropping him into the toe. Really, I should have moved a little bit and sunk him into the outside of his foot, but it doesn't matter. Now, this hand here is connecting to the back. I'm not doing stuff with my arms. I'm an old bloke. I want my entire system to be locked in. My hips are rotating. Now I can feel there's the pivot point. It's loading his fingers up. And now I'm going to change my angle. I'm going to go through. I don't want it locking up to his body because then I can't move him. And this comes up as my hip comes up, and that's what's dropping the tip. Exaggerating to the point of, but you see what's happening. Same as the body movement. And there should be a point, I know it's early in the morning and we're not warmed up, there should be a point where your line of force is stopped, and as I'm redirecting it, you feel like you're still coming forwards. There's a bounce point, a bit of a lag? Yeah. And that's another thing we can look at. There. You'll find in a lot of percussive techniques, especially, just punch it. You know, if I'm leading stuff past, that's fine. If I'm leading it past and trying to make a counter, there's going to be an element of him still passing through when I'm making my counter strike. You see this in things like Wing Chun a lot. Right? But we'll talk about that another day. So we'll have to do this in groups so we don't get any accidents. Drawing out, change of direction, otoshi, sink, and then just turn and roll in the direction you're being thrown in. Nice and comfortable. Okay, help yourselves.